Hello and welcome to this new video, IPv6 for Dummies. This is top tier stuff. So what are we going to cover in this video? I'll be talking about what IPv6 is, though you most likely already know, how to use IPv6, what advantages IPv6 offers, and subnets with IPv6. And some considerations which are really more like questions that I've since found the answers to, and I'll be sharing those with you. So if you're ready, let's go and dive into the world of IPv6. IPv4 is running out. We're running out of version 4 IP addresses. And so to overcome this limitation, they invented IPv6, which is in hexadecimal. At first glance, it might seem complicated, but I can assure you it's a fantastic thing. Now, what does it mean that IPv4 addresses are running out? Well, let's picture it like this. So IPv4 gives you about 4.3 billion IP addresses, which might seem like a lot, but in reality it's nothing. Why? Just imagine all the devices that are connected around the world. Now you might rightly say, right? Or anyway, the average person might think, myself included, okay, I get that IPv4 addresses are running out, but what does that mean? How is that possible? I have my internal network 192.168 and so on, where, the whole network, all the IPv4 address classes can give me 4.3 billion computers or hosts. You can connect a ton of stuff. Then I just put everything behind NAT. I have my public IP address. I go on the internet and problem solved. Yes, the catch is that when we say IPv4 addresses are running out, we're specifically talking about public IP addresses. So just imagine, okay, all the internet connections in the world, then the IP addresses are, just so you understand, at home you have one, but companies might buy a block of 256 IPs, which is the smallest block, but then they can also buy thousands of IPs. AWS has tons of very large blocks, in fact, huge blocks of public IP addresses that are available for use. So all of these public IP addresses, as I mentioned earlier, are actually running out, and the supply is becoming more and more limited every day. Whereas IPv6 gives you a huge number of public IP addresses, and they don't require NAT. We'll see a bit later you can use NAT, but it's not recommended, and so on. We'll look at that in a moment. So when we say that IPv4 addresses are running out, we are referring to public IP addresses. IPv4, as we know, uses 32-bit addresses. IPv6 uses 128-bit addresses, so the scale gets much bigger. For IPv4, an example is 192.168.1.1, as you see on the slide. IPv6, on the other hand, is 2001, etc., etc. IPv6 offers about 340 undecillion IP addresses, which is a staggering number. And that's why, for example, we don't need NAT, because the provider gives you a network, a block of IP addresses that you can use, for instance, in your company or at home, directly on the hosts. So the public IP addresses are directly connected to the hosts, to the computers, for example. And that's where a small problem might arise. You might ask, so how do I protect them? You need a firewall, and maybe later we can even do a small lab session on that. But anyway, we'll see. What advantages does IPv6 offer or bring us? First of all, as we saw a few seconds ago, the IP address space, which is 340 undecillion IP addresses. Then there's the automatic configuration, stateless address auto configuration, or SLAAC, which is used to automatically configure IPv6, which usually takes it from the MAC address. So it's unique and does everything on its own. And the elimination of network address translation, which is NAT. Although, as we'll see later, IPv6 has internal IP addresses, it has internal blocks called ULA, but then you would have to configure NAT66, which converts these, translates these internal addresses into one or more public IP addresses, but it's not recommended. Routing efficiency, better support for quality of service, QoS, integrated security, and management of mobile devices. Attention, integrated security. What does that mean here? IPv6 has native IPsec, but this can be misleading, as it was for me. Because since IPsec is native, one is led to think that it uses IPsec. No. In reality, native means that it has the ability to natively install, for example, a VPN with IPsec. But if you have, for example, 10 computers in your company, the IP addresses are not protected by IPsec. So IPsec must be enabled exactly as it is for IPv4, except that in IPv4, IPsec is optional. Here it is native. So you need to pay a little bit more consideration to this small detail when we refer to native IPsec. And here it is, IPv6. All right, the first four blocks are the network. Imagine 192.168.1.0/24. This means the first three octets are the network, and the last octet, the fourth one, is reserved for the hosts. In IPv6, things are big, so the first four blocks, which is 64 bits, are reserved for the network. And the last four blocks are specifically reserved for the hosts. The last four blocks each made up of 64 bits, which means there would be 2 to the power of 64 available IP addresses for the hosts. Then if you want, you can also shorten this IPv6 address a bit. For example, we can remove the zeros from the address, and as you can see, this is the result. However, if you want, you can also use what is called a double colon, as you see now. This is specifically for consecutive blocks of zeros. You can compress them even further by removing all the zeros, and this is the final result you obtain. Now, IPv6 uses unicast, multicast, and anycast. This should immediately make you think of one thing: we don't have broadcast. As you know, networks' IP addresses, so layer 3 networks, have broadcast. Typically, for example, if you have a 192.168.1.1 network where 1 is the hosts range from 1 to 254, and 255 is the network broadcast at layer 3. All right, in IPv6, there's no broadcast, but we have, as you can see, unicast, multicast, and anycast. So unicast addresses a single specific recipient, which can be either a computer or another router within the network. Multicast, on the other hand, refers to a signal or a data transmission that is sent to more than one router or to multiple hosts, all of which are part of a particular defined group. For example, let's think for a moment about televisions, right? If you have a television or maybe an IPTV device, you would send a multicast message to a group of televisions. Anycast instead sends a message to the nearest node, so it doesn't have a specific group, but simply sends the message to the nearest nodes. And by nearest, we mean in terms of routing. At this point, let's look at unicast addresses. So we have GUA, which are, just to be clear, nothing more than public IP addresses, and they usually start with the numbers 2001, 2002, 2003, and so on. Then we have the link local address. Link local addresses are used for communication within a single network or link. This means they aren't routable on the internet, so these addresses don't go on the internet. And they are mainly used for automatic interface configuration and other management communications. Its format is FA80:10. There we go. ULA addresses are used for internal communication on local networks, similar to our private IPv4 addresses. They are similar, in fact, to addresses like, for example, the 10 network, so 10.0.0.0/8 or 192.168.0.0/16, for example. And these are also not routable on the internet, but they can be routed within the organization. So what does that mean? It means that if I have two interfaces, for example, one with a ULA address and the other with another ULA address, I can route between these two interfaces, but I can't go on the internet. I could go on the internet, as I mentioned at the beginning, with NAT66, but this practice is discouraged. So here too, you always have to consider the requirements and the state of the network, because some things are possible, others you can't do, and some are not recommended, and this is one of them. Then we have the loopback address, and this is like our 127.0.0.1, which is the address for running tests on the machine itself. This is where it gets crazy. When you see something like this, you think, what is this stuff? All right, on the left, you have the compressed address, and you can tell because of the double colon at the end, /64. This 64, let's take a look at what it is, because we've already seen it before, but let's review it together. So the first 4 blocks, and therefore the first 64 bits, are reserved for the network, while the last 4 blocks, the remaining 64 bits, are reserved for the hosts. This gives us something like 2 to the power of 64. Try it on your computer with a calculator. Do 2 to the power of 64 and see how many millions of IP addresses it gives you. Billions, excuse me, of IP addresses. It gives you a huge number. Then we have, for example, /48. In this particular case, it means that the first 48 bits are specifically reserved for the network and the remaining 80 bits are reserved for the hosts. Now, let's calculate our first subnet. So, since with IPv6 you really lose all sense of scale because the IP addresses, as we've seen, are practically infinite, I'm convinced that you should always start small if you want to understand how something works. Yes, of course, it's important to see the picture, the big picture, but you can take one little piece at a time and analyze it. Now, as we've seen, IPv6 has 128 bits. If I want to create a network for 254 hosts, how do I do it? I need 8 bits. 8 bits because anyone who has already done subnetting in IPv4 knows that 8 bits give you precisely 256 hosts. Alright, so I do 128 minus 8 equals 120. This 120 is the subnet I will use to create precisely a network of 256 computers. And in fact, as you can see, I start with a starting prefix of FD00, which identifies a private network /64, which is the entire 64-bit block, which I then subnet and make it a /120. So the subnet is /120. If I wanted to create, for example, 512 hosts, I would need 9 bits. So I would have to do 128 minus 9, 119. And that would be my subnet for 512 valid IP addresses. So this is essentially how you do the subnetting. And this is the result of the entire subnet of the 256 hosts with /120. As you can see at the bottom, I wrote broadcast address theoretically, because as I've already said, in IPv6 we don't have broadcast. So this is just to give you an idea of what it is, but it's not the broadcast address we're used to because, as I said, IPv6 doesn't have one. And finally, let's look at the techniques for translating from IPv4 to IPv6. Alright, at the top, separate from everything else, there's this NET66, which is used, as we've seen, to net ULA addresses into DUR, so from private to public, but which, I repeat, its use is discouraged. While the other techniques for translating IPv6 addresses into IPv4 are, for example, IPv6 rapid deployment or 6RD, which is rapid deployment. Then we have dual stack, or if we want to call it DS Lite, or even other techniques like 6 to 4, 6 in 4, 4RD, which means 4 IPv4 rapid deployment. So these are some of the techniques. All right, IPv6 might seem like a mess, huh? It might seem like a mess, but instead it's fantastic. Guys, believe me. I started reading up a bit on IPv6 because, well, I realized I had to delve into some things, or at least try to remember and refresh some IPv6 topics in order to make this video. If you have any questions, obviously leave me a comment below the video, so at least, I can also keep practicing and learning even more about IPv6, which, as I said at the beginning, will be the future. But if you want, we can do a lab. I'll do a lab where we see, first of all, how to configure a router with IPv6 and a computer, just to understand. And then I'll configure the dual stack, for example, to do IPv6 and IPv4, so I can connect it directly to the internet. And what's more, there could also be the idea of adding a firewall like a Palo Alto, so we can see from the logs how we see the traffic. So the visual perception of what we're seeing, right, to understand, because, hey, IPv6 isn't exactly friendly, where you can remember it. It's not like you call your colleague and say, oh, hey, so the IP address is, you have to send a copy paste because otherwise you won't remember it. Anyway, that's all for this video. I hope that it gave you some notions or like a small introduction to IPv6. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. But even if you didn't like it, leave a like anyway. It's like that, all in good fun. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, which helps me, well, to grow. Thanks and bye.